Working on a couple of just random house projects. We are going to be canning up some just plain strawberry jam. I've never done plain strawberry jam before. I've done Christmas jam and strawberry rhubarb jam. So this is gonna be a new one for me. Very early this morning, we went ahead and got some laundry switched over and dishes taken care of. Went out and did chicken chores and got our strawberries in the pot to go ahead and start kind of cooking down. I put them in straight from frozen. It doesn't really matter, you can thaw them out. It's gonna save you some time, but I just didn't do that. We're kind of caught up for the day, but today we are gonna be canning some strawberry jam. We are doing ours in pints today. That's what I would like to do. That's what the kind of jars I have on hand. Normally I would do them in jam jars, but this is what I have. I'm not running to the store to grab jam jars just to do this project. So we're going to first go ahead and get our jars washed up here. I got my pectin from the basement. I am gonna have to go down and grab more sugar. I have my sugar bucket here, but I definitely don't think I'm gonna have enough sugar in here. So I think we'll be taking some trips down to the basement to bring up some cups of sugar. But my strawberries are still cooking down here. They've got a little bit more to go. I'm also gonna be working through the last little bit of laundry. I have to get finally caught back up on my laundry after like a month of being just chronically behind. That is the plan for day. A couple household projects, but mostly just canning up this jam and getting this like one last bigger project that I have to get out of my freezer and get down to the canning shelf. So let's go ahead and get things done today. Strawberries here are very much so cooked down, but they're still pretty whole. I'm going to very carefully take my potato masher and just mash these up a little bit. I'm going to transfer this back into our measuring cup here just so I can have a better idea of how much is actually in here, because the recipe I'm using, the measurements are for like after they're cooked down, not what they were when you started. So I just want to get at least a better idea, because if I mess up the pectin and the sugar ratio to how much berries I have, it's not going to set properly. And I don't want to add way too much and have it just be a congealed mess. So I'm thinking I have right around 8 cups. That's what this measuring cup is. Okay, I'm glad I remeasured, because prior to cooking down I had 12, so that is a big difference. I'm using the strawberry jam recipe out of my Ball Home Preservation cookbook. This is the one I go to most often. It's probably my most used cookbook just because there are so many recipes in here. So I'm using the strawberry jam recipe out of here. It's on page 39. It is calling for 3 3/4 crushed strawberries. I have around 8 cups. I'm just gonna double this recipe. It calls for 7 cups of sugar for one recipe, so I need 14 cups of sugar in here. So I'm gonna get my sugar in here, my lemon juice, and my pectin as well. But first we have to add our sugar. So it's about 6 cups of sugar. I'm just going to take this with me downstairs and fill it all the way up to get the rest of the sugar that we're gonna need for this. I'm just going to turn this down a little bit. I also grabbed powdered pectin off my canning shelf, but the recipe wants liquid, which is fine. I have some of that downstairs too, so I'm just going to put this downstairs and re-grab my liquid pectin and bring that up with me. So we're just gonna let this sit, and we turned my heat down a little bit, that way it doesn't boil over while I'm grabbing what I need. Here's the other half of our sugar. I know it looks like a lot, and it is, but you have to remember the sugar is also what's gonna help preserve this and keep it in the fridge once it's opened. I made low sugar, no pectin jams in the past, just because I wanted to have that under my belt if grocery store chains and things like that. We lived through 2020 when things were hard to get by. So I just wanted to have a recipe under my belt. And if you're going to do that, you need to do it in smaller jars. Don't do it in your pints like I am today. Make sure you're doing it in your jam jars or even 4-ounce jars, because they don't last very long in your fridge before they will mold on you or go bad. So you need to either make sure you're eating through them very quickly and it's the only jam you have in your fridge and you're just eating off of that, or make sure you're canning them in small jars. I did not do that the first time. I canned mine in pint jars. So now whenever we open up that jam, we make sure that we don't have any other jam in the fridge. It's the only jam we have, it's the only jam we eat. But we haven't gone through that jam very quickly, even though it's our favorite. It's a blackberry jam. I haven't gone through that jam nearly as quickly, even though it is one of our favorites. It's a blackberry jam, but we really like to have like 2 or 3 jams in our fridge at a time, and we can pick with what we want, what we like. Everybody likes something a little bit different, but it's also nice to just mix it up when you are eating. Like for breakfast, we eat a lot of eggs and toast, and when you're eating a lot of the same things, it's nice to be able to mix it up a little bit and add a different jam on top. Or even like the kids with their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or peanut butter and jam sandwiches. Sometimes it's nice to just have something a little different. But we also use these jams for cinnamon rolls, but we'll put cream cheese and some of our homemade jam on the inside. That's really good as well. So we go through a decent amount of jam, but it's not something I can a whole lot of every year, because whenever we go new places or we go to like new Amish shops or Mennonite shops here in our area, the thing we like to buy the most is always jams, because everybody has a little bit of a different recipe and we like trying those from other places. So it's something I do can, but I don't do like a ton of, because that's one thing that we do like to buy and like support local shops and small like local homesteaders and things like that, is by buying their jams. A little bit of a taste test just to see if there is enough sugar in it. I know that sounds crazy, but sometimes you just want to taste it. It's delicious. So I'm just gonna let this come back up to a boil. Once it's boiling to the point where I can't stir away the bubbles, we're gonna add in our pectin, and then things will be ready to start loading in a jar. So I'm gonna clear off my kitchen counter, get my water bath canner loaded and up here, and get it full of hot water. Start letting the water get warm, because we're gonna be putting hot jars. We wanna put it into hot water and just start getting the assembly line pulled together while I'm letting this do what it needs to do. So we are going to be adding in our pectin. Remember, we're doubling the recipe, so that's why I have 2 things of pectin here. Stirring that in, and we're gonna let that sit, come back up to a boil, and then you are ready to go ahead and can. So we are just filling up our jars, loading up our canner, and getting them in. And here's the thing, I didn't know this until after I was done canning all the way and finished filming this video, but I had what can only be described as a catastrophic lid failure. I used a new brand of lids. They were gifted to me. I don't know how old the lids were. Essentially what happened is, I'm not sure if every single can just siphoned and the lids popped off, water got in. I did have 2 jars that did seal, but I'm not really sure on the quality of it. I can't 100% tell if water got in or not. If it had to be anything, I'm glad that it was just jam. It's a little frustrating because I wanted to give these out as Christmas gifts and whatnot, but overall, not that big of a deal and can be fixed. And this is an easy project to go ahead and redo. but nonetheless, it's still frustrating. Then we got to move on to the endless mound of laundry. I had been chronically behind on my laundry for what feels like over a month. Do you guys ever have that where you're like, okay, today's the day, I'm gonna catch up, and then whatever comes up? I had all of my kids go through a sickness. I was driving to the school. I had 1 week where 2 days in a row I had to go to the school to pick up 2 different kids because they were sent home sick. So it was just a lot. There was a lot going on, a lot of sick kids, a lot of just like mommy couch snuggles and all the things, which I have no issue doing. It just means that some things fall behind, and one of them was definitely laundry. So this was a Monday over the weekend. Me and my husband had just like tag team, just constantly switching out the washer and dryer. Lots of folding, lots of putting away. The kids had lots of laundry to go ahead and put away in their rooms. We washed everybody's bedding. We went and did it all. And these were the last couple baskets from that laundry marathon that we as a family had tackled over the weekend. So it felt so good to get this done. And it wasn't really that bad because it was mostly just towels and like extra throw blankets and stuff. So that was always really nice. The time I'm processing these, when I put them in the first time, I was doing I was multitasking and just wasn't paying attention to detail. My brother's military and he FaceTimed me, so I was talking to him and I was supervising my son getting ready to get on the bus. And I was finishing filling these. I threw them in the canner, and what happened was when they were done processing, I took my lid off and realized that not all of the jars were completely underwater. And I don't know if it was like that when I put them in the canner originally, or if through boiling and evaporation the water just came down, which can happen. But I kind of just looked in and could see that most of my jars weren't sealed, like the jars that weren't under the water. So I decided to just add more water to my pot and run it for another 10 minutes. Jam doesn't take that long to process, so it wasn't really that big of a deal to just turn my water back on and get it back up to a boil. I did this because if I pull them out and I wait for them to cool, I felt that some jars didn't seal. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal. I could have put one in my fridge, handed out unsealed jars to my neighbors and told them just keep them in the fridge, or I could have eventually came back and had to reprocess them. So I decided I want all these to be shelf stable. If I have 1 or 2 that still don't seal, that is okay. It's not the end of the world. That happens every once in a while in a batch. You have 1 or 2 jars that just don't seal for whatever reason. But I could tell that like almost half of them were not sealed, and I could have taken them out, like I said, and waited for them to settle. More of them could have sealed, but I just decided to just go ahead and reprocess them. It took less time and less energy to just leave them in the canner, turn the heat back on, than it would have been to wait, dump out my canner, then tomorrow when I realized that some of it didn't seal, get my canner back out, refill it with water, get it up to another boiling point. It was just gonna take longer. So sometimes just doing it right away when you're not sure is gonna save you more time in the long run anyway. So that's what I opted to do here today. But I'm just going to let these sit in the canner for probably 5 or 10 minutes. I like to do that. I think that I have a better seal rate when I do that. When I let them sit in the canner for a little bit, let kind of the temperature even out a little bit with boiling water. I'll pull these out, let them sit around the counter for 24 hours. Tomorrow afternoon, I'll take my rings off, label them with what they are and the year. We'll get them downstairs on the canning shelf. I'm planning in the next day or 2 because I think I've done like 4 or 5 different canning projects over the last week. I've got a lot of jars downstairs that need to find a new home. The pantry needs organization from everything this year, or just putting everything away, finding spots for everything, and just cleaning everything up. And then we'll be doing that together. And then I want to do a pantry tour on all the things that we canned this year, some of my favorite recipes, and just kind of talking about everything that we did and preserved over the last year that's shelf stable on the pantry shelf. And then I think depending on how everything turns out, because Vlogmas is coming up. I do Vlogmas every year. My Vlogmas is a little bit different because I just do Monday through Friday. I take weekends off because I still want to have days to spend with my family and just not have to worry about YouTube in any sense of the word. So I think during Vlogmas we'll do a freezer tour and different things like that and show you guys things that we preserved that aren't canning and blanched and froze and things like that. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, canning some jam, getting things out of the freezer, but also taking care of a little bit of laundry and getting caught kind of back up after a couple of weeks of just a lot of sickness in the house and just a lot of other things that made me fall behind on a couple other things. It feels good to wake up to a clean house, get a project done, and catch up on that last little bit of laundry I had. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys tomorrow.